But it wasn't just black words flooding into American English in the early 20th century. Around that time, the country's population nearly doubled in just 30 years, mainly due to incomers from Central and Eastern Europe. As more Europeans migrated here and began to speak English, words from their own languages came with them. And American English, like English before it, was ready and able to soak them all up. And what was once foreign now sounds apple pie American English. If this coffee had been really hot, someone might have said ouch, from the German word ouch, A-U-T-S-C-H. As well as hamburger and frankfurter, the Germans gave us words like wanderlust, seminar, dumb for stupid, and even the game of poker from the German potzen. Bum, meaning tramp, comes from bummler, a good-for-nothing, hold on from halt an, and so long from the German so lange. So lange itself may have originally come from the Yiddish shalom. Bagels, lox, pastrami and borscht became part of our nosh, another Yiddish word. Soon, German and Yiddish speech patterns flooded the language, and by the end of the century, we would all quite naturally be using turns of phrase such as, am I hungry? I'm telling you. Now he tells me, could I use a drink? I should worry. And there was plenty to worry about in the 1920s. The prohibition of alcohol encouraged gangsters, and in a garage on this unremarkable site, 7 men were mown down by Al Capone's mob in the notorious St. Valentine's Day massacre. It was a time of racketeers and hatchet men, of goons and finks. If you took the rap for a heist, you might find yourself in the can or even in the hot seat, especially for a hijack with a submachine gun. A woman was a chick, a bimbo, a broad or a babe, and a telephone was a blower. We learned not to spill the beans or we'd be taken for a ride, and to avoid gimmicks and pranksters, junkies, pushers and the fuzz. And when we drank hooch, we had to watch out for a Mickey Finn. Gangsters are forever linked with the movies, never more so than here. John Dillinger, the FBI's public enemy #1, was gunned down as he left the Biograph movie theatre in 1934. He was fingered or betrayed by his companion, the notorious Lady in Red. She's still here.
Now beat it, you 2 mugs, before I lose my temper.
By the 1930s, motion pictures and sound had been united, and the talkies were in full swing, bringing a new vocabulary. Going to the movies, at a movie theatre or Nickelodeon, was a national pastime. You could see the stars in close-up, in a weepy or a tearjerker, laugh at some slapstick or be gripped by a spine chiller or a cliffhanger. While the usherette was selling ices, you could watch a trailer for next week's show. You might even dream of going for a screen test yourself. More than anything else, the talking picture would be the engine to spread American ideas and American English from Hollywood around the country and then around the globe over the next century.
Hey, where's the guy that hit me?
Put him up. Come on, get over here.
Hey, what is...
But back in Britain, their language caused an outrage.
The words and accent were perfectly disgusting, and there can be no doubt that such films are an evil influence on our society. Those truly loathsome transatlantic importations to help make worthwhile, nearby and colourful are spreading like the plague.
But with the popularity of Hollywood, those complaints were simply swept aside by most people in Britain. Films were starting to bring the two languages closer together. But despite the incursions of its vigorous cousin, English in the UK was alive and well, with its own style, and also with an awareness of American influence. P.G. Wodehouse defined himself in some measure by stressing Englishness, yet he was informal and up-to-date with phrase-making, as you can see for a couple of phrases. She had a penetrating sort of laugh, rather like a train going into a tunnel. You could say first half Edwardian English, second half American English. Or, there's such a thing as going too far, and you have gone it. Again, could be Edwardian and American. Wodehouse came to school here at Dulwich College in London, and he left the school his books and the desk on which he wrote many of them. And a writer regarded as the epitome of American style also came here to Dulwich College. Raymond Chandler was 7 years younger than Wodehouse. He was born in Chicago, but came to England as a young boy and became naturalised British at the age of 19. From the Edwardian playing fields of Dulwich College came Blandings and Jeeves in a timeless England, and the mean streets of LA and Philip Marlowe in a timeless America. Marlowe's the name of a house at this school. Just as Woodhouse played with British English, Chandler played with American English, making it elegant but tough.
It was a blonde to make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window. She gave me a smile I could feel in my hip pocket.
In the year Chandler published the entertaining American prose of Farewell, My Lovely, Hitler was preparing to invade England and make German the common language of Europe. Different situations make different demands on a language.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight in the air. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
This is part of Churchill's war rooms, underground, behind Downing Street. And from this desk, he made his broadcasts to the nation. In 1940, Britain stood alone against Hitler. Winston Churchill made a speech which drew on the deep historical roots of the English language. It's a masterpiece of rhythm and rhetoric. Churchill had studied the speeches of Elizabeth I, and this has the same resolve as her words at Tilbury, which inspired the English to repulse the Spanish Armada. And it digs deeper into the history of English. All but a handful of words here can be traced back to Old English, the key vocabulary. We shall go on to the end. Fight, strength, island, landing, ground, field, street, hills, and never had all been part of English for more than 1,000 years. Churchill was rallying some of the country's oldest words to the fight. Not to the battle, that was a French word. And surrender, too, is a French word. The hostile Nazi invasion never came, but in 1942, a friendly American one did.
That the Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming.
Nothing could reverse the effects of such sustained exposure to American English. The GIs introduced words like beef burger, crew cut and disc jockey, gizmo, gobbledygook, pin-up and GI bride.
And we won't come back till it's over there.
But the traffic was not all one way. The Americans published this book, A Short Guide to Great Britain, the War and Navy Department, Washington, D.C., for all their troops in this country. It's very friendly and, I think, acute about the British. The British are reserved, it says, but not unfriendly. Then it describes it. Don't show off, it says. The British dislike showing off. Don't say you've got too much money. You've got much more than the British, and don't show off about it. They learned how to eat. They learned that French fries were chips, and a smoked herring was a kipper. They learnt that bowling alleys and 10 pins were skittle alleys with 9 pins, that a 5 and 10 store should be called a bazaar, and that instead of OK, they should say right-ho. And they were told, the British are tough. Don't be misled by the British tendency to be soft-spoken and polite. The English language didn't spread across oceans, mountains, jungles and swamps of the world because these people were panty-waists. Panty-waist. That's American English for what the British would have called a sissy. By 1944, on the eve of D-Day, 1.5 million United States soldiers were billeted around Britain. The Americans eventually returned home. But the language they brought with them has stayed ever since, and English was massively enriched.